Yeah, I was just wondering if you had anything in general you wanted to talk to the club
Oh, no, I
tonight.
think we've already mentioned the Denver Botanic Gardens,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
fun. And I don't know, is David Besson on? I
Yeah,
didn't,
I
I
I
didn't
saw
am,
know.
him a second
yes.
ago.
Oh, there you are. Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to mention your upcoming.
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention it now if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl kindly sent out a reminder email a couple days ago about Tuesday morning meeting at the Denver Art Museum at 11 to go through the Georgia O'Keeffe photography exhibit. As I mentioned last meeting, it's an interesting exhibit, lots of Polaroids, which was surprising to me, but it'd be an interesting outing. And then for those who would like to stay for lunch, we can go across the courtyard and have lunch. Thanks. Just let me know if you are going to be coming. I have heard from a handful of people.
I just wanted to welcome Trish. Thank you for judging tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Just sitting here working. Sorry, I was reading. I'm still reading emails for today.
Oh yeah, I can totally relate.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to our July competition meeting. Our topic tonight or theme is open, so kind of anything goes. And our judge tonight is Trish Sangelo. So thanks for joining us, Trish. And first, I want to see, if we have any guests. It looks like we may have at least one, Teresa Kuchar. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm going to put you on the spot now and just ask you a few kind of standard questions on, how did you learn about Focus? How did you learn about the club? What kind of photography do you enjoy doing? And just a little bit about yourself.
So I just retired from teaching. I just moved here from New York. I found out about the club through the internet, and I enjoy macro photography, night photography, landscapes, just pretty much anything, really.
Mhm.
Just all sorts of things.
Okay, well, cool. Yeah, so you may have seen, on our website, we have 2 meetings a month. The first meeting is a program meeting where we'll usually have a speaker, cover some topic. And then the second meeting of the month, which is tonight, is the competition where members submit images, and we have a judge, and we go through and judge and critique the images.
Okay.
And then on the 5th, if we have a 5th Wednesday of the month, we'll often have a mentoring night too, which is more of a critique where members can get together, bring an image, and as a group kind of critique and look in depth at images. So I'd welcome you to come back and check us out for a program meeting.
Yeah, I actually was here last one.
Oh, you were? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah,
The
Cliff, this is
gentleman
our second
wasn't he
time.
wasn't he from Canada, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, if there's no other announcements, what I'd like to do, I'd like to introduce Trish. So Professor Trish Sangelo is a Master's of Fine Art Photography from Cranbrook Academy of Art. And she's been the gallery director for the Colorado Gallery of the Arts and has been teaching studio arts, commercial and fine art photography, and study abroad at Arapahoe Community College for over 32 years. Trish provides legal, marketing, and photography workshops and lectures throughout Denver. So Trish has been here before for us judging, so really appreciate you coming back. Anything else you'd like to add, Trish?
Not really. I will say I just finally got to teach abroad. I teach photography abroad, and COVID got in the way. So I ended up running 3 trips this summer. I'm still getting acclimated to the time zone. So that's a big part of what I do also. It's super exciting. I will let you guys know, since I do instruct photography, generally my critiques, which I do every day, are really probably, you're going to notice more based on elements of art, principles of design, not just some of the technical elements we do in photography, just because we are a fine art and commercial program. So I weave that in. So you'll hear me talk a lot about those things, just because that's the nature of our programs.
Okay, well, great. Thanks. So just a reminder for everyone. So the format tonight, I'll read the title of the image. Bob will pop it up on the screen. Trish will say a few words about it. We'll get a score on it. After we've accumulated a handful of 9s and 10s, a half dozen or so, I'll just say, hey, let's take a pause after the next image. We'll circle back and let those photographers that had those images that scored a 9 or 10 say a few words about their image. And as we've been doing all year, the images are in random order based on club members. So we're not organized by the skill group sets at all. So they're all totally mixed up. And final thing is, if you don't mind putting yourself on mute, other than when you're
And
talking.
Cliff, before we get started, we have one other guest who joined us, Nadine Van Orstel.
Okay. Hey, Nadine. I don't know if you were here when.
Hi. Yes, thank you.
No, she just popped in.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to get my video on, but it's not happening. I mean, so you won't be able to see me until I figure it out.
Well, we'll
But
just ask you kind of our standard questions. First of all, welcome to the club. Thanks for joining us tonight. And just curious, if you don't mind just sharing a few words at the club about how you found us, what kind of photography you enjoy doing, that sort of thing. Give us a little bit of background.
Okay, well, I was actually on 2 weeks ago and I did answer some of those questions, but I moved to Colorado several years ago and was very active in my photography in Virginia. And I'm actually now just getting back to it. So I've done a lot of travel photography, Antarctica, Tibet, Nepal, Europe, various places. After I retired, I went to school to study photography as I realized it was getting more complicated, and it's actually changed even more in the last 6 years. So I'm on a very high learning curve right now. I'm doing a deep dive into my iPhone photography because I had a thumb as in THUMB joint replacement, and I got to have another one. And right now it's difficult for me to hold all my old heavy equipment. So I'm on a whole new adventure, I should say. But I saw I went online and looked up camera clubs, and that's how I found you. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you're doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, great.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for joining. Okay. Anything else?
Cliff, I have something. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to overstep your boundaries. I just wanted to welcome. We have a new member, and it's always one to celebrate. Keith McAvoy recently became a new member, so I just wanted to say thank you very much, Keith, for joining. We look forward to getting to know you a little better and seeing some of your images. So welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
Welcome,
Good
Keith.
here.
Okay. I think we're ready now. Bob, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. I'll have you go ahead and pop up your screen.
Oh, actually, I just wanted to clarify, we're still doing the score, the traditional score, right?
Yeah. So 7 through 10 kind of ranking.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And as I had an opportunity to go through them kind of quickly last night, wow, there's some really amazing images. And I thought, oh gosh, this is going to take forever. So, just because there's so many great ones. I do teach black and white, and I do teach color because I do digital. So I am familiar with both. For this particular image, I really appreciated the contrast level. I felt like the blacks and the whites and the midtones look really good. It is a little, if you look at that lower left-hand corner, it's a little hot in the white areas. Probably could tone that down a little bit, just so that it doesn't pop off. When I take my hand and cover it just a little, you'll see the eye will relax a little bit. It's one of the tricks I do in my classroom. But I also like where the focal point is and how the tree in the center is, you know, twisting, and then you have the straighter trees around it and some of the depth with that. It is a little hard to see that tree. I'm wondering if there's a way, whether it be a little bit more shallow depth of field or in the tonal ranges, to make that center tree being the main focal point pop out a little bit more. But those are some minor things. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Looking up at the sun.
Yeah, and I also thought it was fun to look at the titles in relationship to the imagery. We currently are getting ready to host a study abroad show, and that's our new topic right now, is, you know, labeling and identifying our art. So that's been fun. I really enjoy this image. It has a beautiful contrast. It's basically the full zone system. I like seeing the light peeking through. It's not too much. Looks super intentional. I really appreciate all the line quality. There's a lot of organic lines intersecting, and so it's really nice, the eyes constantly moving through the image. And then also sort of the tonal ranges where they're a little darker on the outside, and then as you're coming into the light, it lightens up, and so it really helps on that perspective. And I really do like the vertical composition on this. I'm going to give this one a 9. And the reason is, I do feel like that where the sunburst is, that little bit of center area is losing a little bit of detail and texture, and might have been able to be drawn out just a little bit so it doesn't appear too washed out. And I'm referring to around the sunburst, not the sunburst itself.
Look at me.
Yeah, love nature images. It's a beautiful animal. He works well in his environment. He blends in, which is the point of how nature works. I think that the depth of field on it helps so that he stands out from the background. I do think the cropping is a little predictable. It's just a really tight crop. I guess I would kind of have liked to have seen maybe the relationship between him and or her, sorry, can't tell, in their natural environment. Possibly a horizontal format might have allowed you to sort of see that relationship. It is more of a portrait, but I feel like it's just a little tight, and it's not offering me any more information that I might have been wanting to see. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 7.
The wharf.
Oh, I just loved aged, dirty things when in photography. This particular image has a nice composition. I like the intersecting lines, but I do feel like it's a little bit flat. It almost looks like we need to punch up the color a little bit, saturate it. I get that it's an older, worn down subject, but it also, just the whole image overall just looks a little washed out flat. So for me, I would have liked that to pop a little bit more. I'm going to give this one a 7.
Light.
That's
Very tranquil, lovely. Really, when you look at it, you instantly get that feel of, you know, the spiritualness, that it's spiritual and tranquil. I like the foreground having the trees, you know, and then breaking that up with the midground. I really like the perspective on it and how the light is coming through. I actually think the darks in it look pretty good, so it helps with the perspective. Again, I kind of feel like just a hint of a punch on the color, just so that it looks faded to me. And maybe that is intentional, so I apologize. But to me, it actually looks like an image that wasn't completely, for lack of better words, developed. So it doesn't look quite like where it should be on the contrast level and on the saturation level. I'm going to give this, but it's a beautiful image. I really like the subject matter and the way it's composed. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Until tomorrow.
Yeah, super lovely. I zoomed in and out on this one a lot. I really love just the overall composition of it. Again, very tranquil. I think the color on it's really fun. Whether it's been manipulated or original in color, it looks very natural to me. I like the human element where now I can see the environment around it. It's more settling for me to look at that. I appreciate how the water looks, and especially in the foreground. I like the surfer. I'm happy that they look like a silhouette. I don't like when I look at a silhouette and someone's tried to save it and not let it go fully black and it looks kind of washed out. So that was done correctly. It's just a beautiful image overall. I actually want to give this one a 10.
Exploding allium.
Love the perspective on this as well. Something that's so small has so much perspective, and then it's obviously because of the way it's been photographed, and the depth of field, and having that softness and then these little bursts of sharpness around it. It works beautifully. It fills the composition nicely. The horizontal format works really well for this one. I like some of the softness that it provides, even in the foreground. It just gives me a sense of closeness, and I do get a feel that excuse me, I thought my dog was going to bark. Might have to put him away. But I definitely get a feel of being in the moment. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Profound sound.
Yeah, it was fun to see one of your shows, or I mean, one of your, I'm going to call it a show, and you don't have a theme. And so it was really interesting to see how diverse all the images are. And this one, when I first saw it, really struck me because a lot of the images have these tranquil quality. And then this one just has so much energy, and it's vibrant, and you can feel the words coming out of her mouth, and there's so much energy in the subject matter, and the composition is really lovely. The motion of the hand gives you that sense of energy that she's portraying. And I do kind of wish I could see a little bit more of the hair. The head kind of gets lost in the abyss of the black, but it's a minor thing for me. And I do like the tight cropping of it as well. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Canola fields in bloom.
So beautiful. But again, I feel like when I look at it, and I looked at this on I actually looked at all of these on 2 different computers to make sure that I wanted to see if there was a difference in saturation, and there wasn't. This is another one where I feel like the saturation is just a little bit undersaturated. It has a hint of wash over it. I'm not sure if you are able to see you're seeing it the same way on your computers. So I would like a little more pop. I feel like that would help with the contrast on it too, but absolutely beautiful subject matter. And I think the composition is nice. I like the horizon line being up so high. The color palette has a nice complement. And the sharpness is a little soft on that upper right hand corner. I was zooming in and out, but it's really minimal. I'm going to go ahead and give this one an 8.
Hoodoos and stars.
Yeah. Very fun. I wish foreground had a hint more brightness, because I mean, I can tell that if obviously we're lighting the subject. And so I feel like it's sort of a soft light instead of a little bit more brilliant light, just to really define the shapes of the rock formations. The sky looks great. The black looks great. And there is a little softness around the edges of it, but we are shooting at nighttime. So I know the challenge is, I'm going to give this one an 8.
Scottish pride.
Beautiful portrait, studio lit. Just the fact that in this particular portrait, the background complements the subject, the chair complements the subject. You can really tell it's been really well thought out for the studio setting. The skin looks great. That one part of his cheek is a little hot. I probably would have tried to tone that down. Actually, in the shoot, I may have had asked, hey, may I throw just a little hint of powder on there just to wick it away, but not so much that you don't notice it's bright. I'm just referring, it looks a little shiny. But the tonal range on the rest of the face, the hand, the way the fabrics are reflecting the light and showing the shape of the fabric looks really good. And I just love the expression. I'm going to give this one a 9.
A friendly conversation.
What a great perspective. I wonder if they knew they were being looked at and photographed. But it's really fun to sort of be in that voyeuristic type of perspective when we're looking at people through our lenses. I like the composition. I like the subject matter to the left, and then in play with the seating element, which is very interesting looking. The ground, the floor surface is interesting. It adds texture to the image. It's not flat with all the little squares that have more highlights in them. The motion of the gentleman's hand, you feel that engagement going on. So it's fun to look at it. I'm going to give this one an 8.
A little off the top.
Great title. I really appreciate just the natural and relaxed feel of this image. It doesn't look disturbed. It doesn't even look like they know that the photographer is there. It feels just, being in the moment. The color looks great. I love the little cushion with all the bright patterns and yellow in it, and all the baskets and things hanging around, and the hair on the ground. It's so natural looking, and the composition gives you just enough information on the environment, yet it has that portraiture appearance. I'm going to give this one a 9.
Sunset and silicon dioxide.
What an odd contrast. When I was looking at it, I was thinking about how the praying part of it, really is mimicking the shape of the sand. It almost aligns with it, and that relationship of nature, and then how we, come in with all of our power lines and our equipment, and we sort of ruin what nature looks like, is sort of what I was thinking. And then you have this majestic sky with this beautiful sunrise. It really helps separate all those lines leading up to the top, because often those become directives and they lead your eye to, in this case, they lead your eye to the middle at the top, and you would shoot off and your eye would move too quickly through the image. But because the sky, the color and the texture help hold your eye in. And then there's these little tiny moments, whether they're intentional or not, I'm not sure, but it's almost, as you look at the ripples of the sand, there's even like these little moments where you see crosses. I don't know if those are actually crosses being drawn in there, or if it's just the way the sand is, but there's a lot of organic shapes that are going on from that, and I really enjoy looking at that. And I like the foreground. A hint of it is helpful, balancing the subject with the green. So I'm gonna, and it is a complementary color of the red. I'm gonna give this one an 8.
Grit.
I love that name, Grit. I actually really like the composition. I enjoy imagery that isn't always symmetrical. I really find it soothing to look at an image where there's a lot of empty space that still has integrity. So when I look at the left side of this picture, whether it's the highlight vertical line going up and down, or just the softness of the depth of field that provides, highlights inside that deep shadow, they're soft and they still feel active. So it doesn't feel like negative space to me. And for me, that really does balance the weight of the gentleman and the brightness of his skin. I really like the highlights on his hat, on the bill of his hat. His skin looks fabulous. And that cigarette just dangling down there, it adds a really nice, which is I think where some of that grit comes in, nice quality. I really like the contrast on this. Beautiful. I mean, those blacks are true blacks. The highlights look good. I mean, I really do feel like I'm seeing the full zone system. No matter where I see a highlight, I feel like I still see texture. And that's the goal with a white, is to still maintain that. So I really like this image. I'm going to give it a 9.
Mallard.
I love this image. I like the movement of the mallard. I like the water that is being splashed around. I like the composition of the duck and the bill. I think it frames nicely. Normally I want an environment when I look at something, but ideally this has a studio look, whether it's done in a studio or not. It really does, especially with all the black around it. And then I think that the I started to say hair, the feathers really hold up well. They have nice texture. They have nice movement, the speckling, the eye is constantly moving through this image. You definitely get a sense of motion. I actually want to give this one a 10. I really like the composition of this subject matter.
Forlorn in Trinidad.
Yeah, it's got beautiful color. I love the aged wall, the little hint of the gate, just to add a little pattern and texture to that side. How casual he's sitting there. Again, we don't look like we're disrupting the subject when we take the picture. He looks very, whether he knows he's being photographed or not, he's very comfortable. So his facial expression is relaxed. I like that slight angle, so it doesn't look too straight on, so you get a hint of perspective on it. The weatheredness, you can feel the weathering in this. I'm going to give it a 9.
And then Bob, if we could, we'll take a break after this next image and circle back and review some. So this is sliver of light. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Sliver of light.
Yeah, what a great title for this piece. I mean, I think a lot of us have been around a variety of, in Utah, or where the stone absorbs light a lot. And here it's almost like that light actually is finally reflecting, and the black really, I think, holds those shapes nicely. I like the contrast. I like the highlights. They're nice and rich. They're bright. They're not too bright. There's a lot of good color saturation, so you get to really see all the bits and pieces of the rocks where it's in or where it's coming out. And you do get a sense of depth in it, because on the lower left-hand corner, how we're entering right there. And there's a nice entering point because it dips down and then you go across this ridge. And the movement on it's so beautiful. I'm actually I like this one to be a 10, please.
Go back and review these. Looking at the Sun, this is Dan Greenberg.
Hi,
Looking at-
everyone. Hi. This one is actually a black and white of Antelope Canyon, obviously. And I did it mostly because I have so many color pictures, and I've seen so many color pictures of Antelope Canyon that I kind of thought this might be different. It's a 5 exposure HDR. That's why the tonality is as good as it is. And even Trish, even the white part that you said was blown out, that was like about all I could do to get texture in it at all, like, using that many exposures. But anyway, thank you very much. And that's it.
Thanks, Dan. Until tomorrow, Sean Slade.
Trish, thank you very much for the comments. I was near Point Loma in San Diego and shooting obviously sunset, and I got lucky with this. I was shooting a lot more like water around the rocks coming in, and as the surfers were rolling in, I just kind of turned, saw this guy set up, and I shot it real quick. And I worked the foreground a lot with some luminosity masks to really bring out the highlights and the motion and stuff. And then the title just jumped out to me because, with his silhouette looking back at the surf, just kind of like screamed to me. It was a good day, but until tomorrow. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Scottish Pride, Cliff Lawson.
Okay, how about now?
There you go.
All right, sorry for that. This is one of my veterans, and Chris, you're right about that bright spot under his right eye there. And when you said that, I went, yeah, you're right, that's bright. Sitting here at home on my computer is handy. I went back to the original file, and there's a lot more detail. It's not quite as bright on the original. So, but what you saw, you're exactly right. But when he walked into the studio with that facial hair and that uniform on, that man, that's going to make a great picture.
All right, thanks, Cliff.
You bet.
A little off the top, Dave Hull.
Chris, thank you very much for your comments. This was taken a number of years ago in Burma. And it was, every time you turn around the corner, there was a scene like this where you had an old, axle or old wheel and part of an axle forming the chair for this barber. I was fairly close. He knew I was there, but he never looked over, and I didn't want to interrupt him. But I was just enamored. This is kind of a typical dress that they wear, both men and women, called a longi. What was interesting to me is this guy is, maybe in his 20s, 30s, hard to tell, but the young guy was dressed in Western clothes. And so it was kind of an interesting contrast as their culture changes. They want to adopt more Western styles. So anyway, that was it. I was just pretty enamored with this guy and then went on down the street. Thanks, Trish.
Great. This is David Besson.
Thank you, Trish, for your comments and feedback. This picture I actually took early last week down in Austin, and I had been walking around downtown doing a lot of architectural photography because there's a lot of building that's gone on in Austin over the last probably 5-6 years. It was about 95 degrees and heating up to 105. And I was on my way back to the hotel, and I just looked up, and this guy was actually riding a bicycle, but he had stopped at the traffic light. And I just picked up the camera and shot, and it just caught a real kind of emotion of determinedness, and I really liked it. But thanks for your feedback.
Okay. Mallard, Dominic Adducci.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. So I took this at the Botanic Gardens. I think it was actually pretty harsh light, but it just so happened that it wasn't, I guess, maybe went behind clouds slightly. But they tend to have really dark pools, so it really isolates things out well. And I was just kind of waiting, caught some motion while also keeping her head still and sharp. But thank you for the comments.
And Forlorn in Trinidad, this is Gwen Patton. Okay, she did have a note here, just a photo taken in Trinidad, Cuba in 2017 while on a Rhodes Scholar tour. And then this is Sliver of Light, Brian Donovan.
Yeah, I spent 4 days at the Grand Canyon early this spring and took a lot of the grand landscapes, but I really like this more intimate view and the light was great. So thanks for your comments, Trish.
Great, thanks, Greg. Okay, that was all for the review. So we can pick back up with our sequence, Bob.
One thing I'd like to mention as I'm listening to everybody and I'm thinking about the images we just looked at again is, several of you have mentioned those moments. A lot of times in photography, we try to control our subject, especially commercial, and we set it up and we get it just the way we want it. But really, sometimes the most emotional, impactful images are the ones where you turn and there it is. And you've got to work quick and you have to use those skills that we have become inherent in using. And I think those are the ones that always are so eye-catching because they're so natural. So I appreciate that. I see it a lot in your subject matter.
This bird cloud.
If the title wasn't there, I would not have seen it. That's one of the things I do like about titles when we use them. If they give us a hint into something maybe that we didn't know was there. And so when I looked at it, it took me a second and then I was like, oh wait, yeah, there it is. That's really cool. And it is part of the highlights. I mean, it really fills the sky beautifully. It fills that section that's normally negative space and makes it look positive. I like the silhouette of the lights, with the wire, and then the more modern looking, and then the hint of the tree, the softness. It's got a nice juxtaposition of different subjects sort of working together. And it does look like a bird, so very nicely done. I'm going to give this one a 9. Good contrast, by the way.
Mission archway.
And I just got back from Europe, so I saw a lot of this. Love the texture of the building, the archways, the cropping on it is really nice. I probably, again, would have bumped that contrast just a hint because it does look a little bit flat to me. But I like how the green is at the bottom, so it really helps stabilize where the ground and the wall meet. I also like the archway right there, the way it's cropped, so it gives you that feeling of entering into the image. Again, you get to feel like you're participating in the image when you're looking at it. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Clear Creek rafting.
Been there, done that, been in the water. That's great, being off on the side and being able to watch, something that's so exhilarating and crazy. And the color looks fabulous in the blue. It does have, more of a commercial feel to it. All those people would want the image, capturing their expressions and their cheer and whatnot. I'm going to give this one a 7. And the water looks really nice, by the way, the crispness of the water.
High-res abstraction.
I like the reflection. I think it's fun sometimes to see the reflections as being the main subject as opposed to the surface itself. It does look a little bit washed out to me again. And I don't have a problem seeing what it is I just want more punch. I feel like we're missing our black, which is going to help with that visual depth. The highlight looks okay, but it's a lot of midtones. And so I would have probably adjusted the contrast a little bit, just so it has more visual depth. I understand it's flat and it's a flat subject, but again, we want that illusion. I'm going to give it a 7.
Sunrise over the Masai Mara.
I like the composition on this one, the long, more panoramic. Love the isolation of the main subject and all the color at the top. It really does have that feeling of sort of the safari look going on. I want to change my view for 1 second. There we go. Love the yellow, going through the sky all the way down to the bottom. Really helps connect the subject. I'm going to give this one an 8.
So just a quick interruption. What would you have done differently to get a higher score? Make it a better picture.
Can you put it back up? Is that something you want me to say for all of them or just this one?
Yeah, I think in general, when you can, just offer, some kind of concrete comments like this is, what could be done to improve or undone to improve it, things like that. That could be added.
And sometimes it is just the subject or just the simplicity of something. Or if you could put that up for me again, please. I'm not seeing it as a large screen. There we go. I appreciate it. I do feel like maybe it's a little bit thin still. I'm seeing that on a few of the subjects where maybe it's during the lighting when you're photographing at the time of day and you get that hazy look that creates some of the lack of contrast. It's very tranquil to look at. I would say that it's not as exciting to look at as some other images, other than the fact that it's a beautiful sunrise with a single tree. So that's sort of why I was going that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's looking at you.
Great. The composition works good for the way the three are standing together and how they're filling the space. I like their facial expressions. I mean, they're just, locked dead on. I do think that, there is a little motion going on. I'm not referring to the perspective in the background, and there's a little hint of softness in two of their faces, but the overall sharpness looks really good. Again, it's just a clean shot, straight dead on. Sometimes when I'm looking at images, I'm looking for that aha moment where there's something unique about it that separates it from sort of that predictable, cropping of something. It is a tight shot. I, again, would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the environment. Maybe that would have made it feel maybe more like I could interact with the subject or the environment that it's in. I don't always react as emotionally when it has that sort of predictable kind of composition. So for me, I'm going to give this one an 8.
Auger, buzzard, and flight.
Yeah, great capture. I've been looking at a lot of images of hawks and eagles lately, sort of capturing them in the sky or in their nesting areas, things of that nature. And just being able to capture them, especially in flight, is so majestic. I think that I did zoom in really tight on this. I was looking at the face and the tips of the wings and stuff, and it's really sharp. But I think the thing that I enjoyed about it the most was just the capture, that moment, capturing that moment. The composition looks pretty good. The sky is pretty empty, so it really relies just on the subject to hold your attention. And so I think in that respect, it looks pretty good in terms of the facial expression and then the way the wings are sort of curling in. So I'm going to give it an 8.
Fending off the Pelican Armada.
Yeah, I like the relationship between the two. I like the environment being included. It's interesting to see the scale of the Pelican versus the other bird. I didn't realize pelicans could get that big. So I was kind of thinking you could just gobble him right up. But I do like the relationship between the two. Sometimes just a picture of something isn't quite as eye-catching as seeing an activity or seeing the moment and feeling it. And here you really do see that activity and what's going on between them. The reflections look great. I think the water's fun. The cropping is nice. I'm going to give this one a 9.
Levels of purple.
Clever. It's very clever. When I was really thinking a lot about the title of it And, you know, as you see, each step is a little different in color. And then you see it says level 4, 5, so, you know, and I thought it's such a nice play. The title's a nice play off of the image. And I love how fun this image is, and seeing all the colors, you know, slightly changing the composition with the staircase on the left-hand side going up really creates a nice perspective. It's a soft perspective, but it definitely gives you that level of depth, and all the line quality that's going on is fabulous. I'm going to give it a 9.
Anchored fishing boats.
Yeah, beautiful image. I really appreciated the perspective on this one, being so up close on this first boat right here in the front, and the play of the color off of, pardon me, I'm not a boater, I'm going to go with bow. Sorry if I'm wrong. And then the water under, you know, off to the left of it is really beautiful, and how soft it is. It almost doesn't even look like the same image as your eye moves up and you look at the rest of the water. But it's so beautiful, and I like the play of the green and the blue next to each other. And then seeing the smaller boat, well, they're not smaller, seeing the other boats in the background really give you a sense of perspective because of their scale. And the sky looks great. There's just enough texture. It's gloomy looking, yet the front of it is bright. It looks great. I'm going to give this one, and the composition is really well done, I'm going to give this one a 10.
At the pier.
This one also has a nice sort of what I like to think of as a soft perspective. It gives you that sense as you go from the left side into almost the center of the picture. It just leads you in, and then of course it goes straight, which is also aligning with the horizon line. The sky looks great. Sometimes, you know, weather doesn't always work in our favor. An empty sky can be very challenging with a subject, especially if it's a big portion of the picture. So having, you know, dappled light, or having nice clouds or color in the sky are really helpful, so the eye can stay in the image, and it just adds another level of depth and interest. And the water looks great too. And then having that little bit of the two people walking, you know, just to sort of give it a sense of scale and activity to it. I'm going to give this one a 9. I do think the black could have been a little blacker underneath. If you look at it, it's like a dark gray, and it really needs to be black. So you need to bump that contrast.
Madeira Majesty.
Lovely image, looking through the flowers, looking at the bridge. The light looks good. It looks like there's been some work on the sky and some of the colorization. It almost looks like it was desaturated and then had like a watercolor wash on it. So there's like this kind of soft romantic feel going on in different parts of the image. And I like the scale of the flowers, you know, versus the background. It fills the frame really nicely. A lot of vertical lines, yet the sky helps keep the eye in. There is kind of like a darkness, almost like a filter on it, but it really looks so intentional to me. I really like this image. I'm going to give it a 10.
And we'll stop after this next one, Bob, for a review. Okay, Geeter Yaya.
Which I don't know what that means. Maybe it's the name of the band. The hair
I
looks.
I believe it would be pronounced guitar.
Oh, is that? Like, can you show it again?
Guitar. Oh.
Oh, what is it? Where can I see it again? Oh, yeah. Okay. A little fun play there. And no pun intended on that either. The hair looks great. I like the backlighting on it. It really holds the hair from the background, so you get that texture. And the punch of color is really fun, and it's whimsical with the subject matter. You can really get a sense of the motion and the play of the music, and I even like how the cord is wrapped in a circular shape, so it adds a little bit of interest in that corner there, in the shirt texture. looks really nice and nice composition. I think there really isn't something to say that would improve it. I mean, even the white looks really good. It's holding up the texture. But at the same time, it's not really eye-catching. It's just, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay, if we could rewind or review here. There, Bird Cloud. This is Steve Wilton.
Yes, this was in Louisville, Colorado, and that originally there's some strong winds aloft, and I chased this cloud till I found some way to take it, juxtapose it against something. I think it started out as a contrail, but thank you.
Interesting. Fending off the Pelican Armada. This is Terry Hanford.
This was sort of interesting. This I believe this is a female red-winged blackbird, the little bird, and it had a nest. This is quite a small pond, and 2 pelicans landed in it. And this bird just kept dive bombing this pelican, and the pelican either had its head underwater or was turned the other way. I don't even think it knew it was going on. And finally, it came up and it saw this, and its mouth just fell open. It was just a wonderful moment. I have a lot of pictures that it was just completely oblivious to what was going on. Thanks for the comments.
Thanks, Terry. Levels of Purple. This is Laura Blake. Okay, she didn't have any comments about the image itself here. So, and then this is Anchored Fishing Boat, Stan Greenberg.
Yeah, this one was taken in Howth, Ireland a few years back. We were in Dublin for a wedding, and in the state of being drunk, this one person recommended I go there because I was telling him how I like things like boats and cars. And it was a really incredible day. It was raining when this was taken. And because of that and the overcast skies, the colors really popped. I mean, I pushed this a tiny bit, but actually the colors are pretty real on it. And I just kept running around looking for all sorts of different compositions, and I'm really glad you like this one. Thank you, Trish.
Understand. At the Pier, this is Victoria Ashby.
Yes, this was taken in Vancouver, Canada, and we were down by the water. I just love the colors of the pier, actually, and I had a good day. So thank you for the comments about darkening underneath. I can sure do that. So thanks for your comments.
This is Madeira Majesty, Sean Slade.
Hi, Trish. Thanks. Tonight must be my night. But no, what I did on this one is I first put an Orton filter on it, and then I brushed out that Orton filter on all the vegetation in the foreground. And then I really worked, trying to highlight, some of the bright spots to accentuate the setting sun, pop some of the contrast, because I wanted the vegetation to really stand out from the Golden Gate Bridge in the background. And I'd never seen these Madeira flowers before, and they're gorgeous when they're in bloom. So thank you very much.
Sean, this is Guitar Yaya, Larry Hartlow.
Thank you. Guitar Yaya. This was the Cherry Creek Arts Festival over the July 4th weekend. I lined up the guitarist with a light in back of his head. Then I blackened everything around and brought out the colors of his shirt. And it's when you hear the music, it's somebody should come up with a way to have sound with a still photo, not necessarily a video, but just a still photo with some sound. Because I find that the music or things, those affect us emotionally, and we try to show that in our photograph, but it doesn't come through very well. And I don't know quite how to bridge that gap, but thanks very much, Trish. I appreciate your comments.
Okay, that was it for the review. So back to the rest of our images.
Actually, I want to make a suggestion to what you were just mentioning about that. So when you look at this particular image, it has a very portrait feel to it. So when we think of portraits, we think of studio, even though I know it's not in a studio, and you think of still lives and things that are very confined and isolated. I think if we include some of the environment and get a sense of what's going on around things, it's easier to maybe imagine, for example, what the sound would be, because the environment sort of gives clues and hints to some of those experiential opportunities that we don't get when we start really focusing in on a subject. So that's one of the ways I approach it when I'm trying to hit more senses than just, the eyes.
Thanks, I'll take that into my repertoire. Thank you, Trish.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks for the comments, Trish. Selfie expression.
So many of them these days. That's so much fun. They're trying to do exactly what the photographer's trying to do, which is kind of funny, is getting that perspective behind them, getting the keyhole and then seeing it come out. The color of the water looks great. I love the texture of the sand, very intentionally cropped on the sides. And then you get to have that experience of everything moving back, wood by wood by wood as you go through, and the color. And I love the texture of the pier itself, the aging of it, the scale of the people. That thing is huge. It's really fun. I also like the shadows that are being cast. You get a sense of the type of light we're looking at. So I'm going to give this one a 9.
Nature versus man-made.
Yeah, makes me think about that earlier image of the sand with the crane piece coming in. The water looks wonderful, capturing the actual motion. It's soft and it's beautiful. And then seeing, yep, the man-made staircase there to help you get out, get you in and get you out. The rock looks nice. There are some focus issues down below, but it's helping you capture the water. So I think that looks good. The color saturation, you get some depth from the darkness on parts of the stone, yet other parts, are brighter. But some of the softness at the bottom for me, I kind of wish it was a little bit sharper. And then, with the water flow being still soft, hard to do that. I'm going to give it a 9.
Some memories are a curse.
Beautiful studio shot. Studio is really hard sometimes to capture the essence of something, the emotion. Sometimes we take away those things when we're shooting. Lighting is a big part of that. In this respect, again, the background looks really nice, having some dappled texture. The hint of lighting around the head. The fabric looks fabulous. I mean, it was captured so beautifully. I mean, you can see the stitch work, and even there's a little piece of the thread coming off at the collar there on the left. The skin looks fabulous. The fingernail, the catching, the catch light in the eyes, the skin has highlights, but it's not shiny. So, and just the gaze of the gentleman. I mean, you just feel it. It's very powerful. And that's really hard to do in a studio close-up setting. I'm gonna give this one a 10.
Circles.
I kind of wish the perspective was had a little more perspective. It's a little bit flat, and I actually think it might have given more depth in the reduction of the size of the circles as it goes through the image. I kind of feel like if we pulled back just a little, we might have got more perspective out of it. I think the overall lighting on it looks pretty good. The black looks pretty good, but I do wish that rust color had a little bit more punch to it. It is a little bit flat, and you have not quite monochromatic subject, but a little more contrast might have helped that pop a little bit more. I'm going to give it an 8.
Super flower blood moon.
I know it's hard to shoot night photography, and we actually have a whole thing that we do photographs off the top of our college with our astronomy class. It's a fun collaboration, and it's so exciting to do it. When I look at it, though, I don't quite have that same level of excitement as I do when I see it actually during our shoots. But it is beautifully caught. It is rarely you get these opportunities, so I think it's great that you were able to do that. The clipsing of the I'm not sure which one, the whichever one is at the bottom. I'm so sorry. It is great because it really does show you how the light does, literally it just stops, and the color is intense and having bits and pieces. But the composition for me is, it's just, it's a little predictable because it's so perfectly framed. I mean, I'm wondering, and you might have some where you might have played with the composition a little bit so that maybe there was a little bit more negative space to help create an interesting off balance, where it's not so symmetrical. Just to do something a little bit different. And the predictable composition for me just locks me in like deer in headlights. But yet still a beautiful photograph. I'm going to give it an 8.
Watching the sunset.
Really, this is an example of where the composition, playing with that composition, making the main subject almost the smallest part of the picture, and it's the shadow and the texture of the ground that become the subject you're spending the most time looking at. I do wish that shadow was just a hint bit darker, because I think then your eye would pick up on it a little bit faster, still be able to see the texture of the ground come through the shadow, but the shadows are the subject. Even though we know it was meant to be the writer. But I really like that diagonal line. I like the intersecting lines. The highlights look good. Even the top of the stone still has some texture in there. The vertical lines at the very top. Overall, the way it's composed, it's so interesting. It makes you stop and just kind of think for a few minutes. And that's one of the things. It's like a little story going on. But it does need a little bit more depth. And so I am going to give it a 9, but the composition gets a 10, but I'm going to give it a 9.
Lily pads.
Yeah, beautiful contrast. And, I played around with this one with my hand, trying to figure out compositions and like, should you keep the stick in on the right, on the left, or what, how is this playing with this, and how does this affect your eye flow? And there's a lot going on, but I think the composition on this is pretty good. You've got nice texture on the pads, and there's really very little highlight areas that don't retain texture. So even your highlights are still doing their job. And it has an abstract feel to it. Sometimes my eye wanders off with I lose my interest a little bit quickly. It doesn't really hold my interest quite as long. So I'm going to give it a 9, but your saturation is fabulous. Your overall tonal range is great.
And the score?
I thought I said it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Well, let's give you a score then. A 9. I'm sorry. I thought I said that out loud. I said it in my head. Other way.
Very lemony.
Yeah, that front lemon is great. I was zooming in on it, looking at it, and I love just that little bit of the seed being cut. The composition, the still life on it is great. I love the soft depth of field on it and the perspective, you know, how your eyes coming through the lemons off onto the subject matter in the back. The color is the light blue playing off the yellow, the horizon line behind it off of the table. It all plays really nicely together. It's a really nice still life. We actually do food photography, so we spend a lot of time setting things up and arranging them and thinking about how the eye flows and what's going to make somebody, what reaction are you looking for from the viewer in terms of interest of the actual food itself. So I think it's really nicely done. I don't see anything that I really would have fixed on it. I'm going to give this, actually, it's a really nice still life. I'm going to give this one a 10.
Awning.
Yeah, beautiful contrast, full zone system. I really, the reflection off of each of the awnings there is beautiful. I mean, you can feel the reflective quality on it. It looks so tangible. And the black is fabulous. The texture in the fabric is wonderful. The sky looks great. The softness of the sky is nice. That dappled light is helpful. Again, if it was empty space, if there had been no texture, we might not have been able to enjoy the rest of the subject as much. I think overall the cropping on it is wonderful. It has sort of a square format, which works really nicely, but just the contrast on this and the full scale of the grayscale is fabulous. I'm going to give this one a 10. I really like also just how abstract you made the subject look.
Buffalo Pass Red Aspen.
Yeah, great perspective on this one too, kind of looking down on it. I do wish the color was punched up. It feels a little flat to me when I look at it. There's such a fine line between wanting to take an image and maybe not, like I'm a purist in my own subjects. I do very little change. I work in the darkroom a lot too, so it's sort of the nature of how I'm trained, but sometimes we don't want to over manipulate an image, but I really loved that about digital. So I do think we should take advantage of what it offers up us. And so really working your darks and your highlights and then getting that color where it looks saturated enough. It just looks a little washed out. And I think if you punch that color just a little and create a little more contrast out of it, it would have a lot more visual depth and be even more eye-catching. So I'm going to give this one an 8.
Patchwork Pasque Flower.
Yeah, it's really fun to look at it. I mean, I sat there and was like trying to figure out how much of a kaleidoscope image it became, where the lay is, you know, what type of filtering, and I love the color shifting in it. It has that negative positive feel going on where it's been swapped. I feel like I'm looking at a slide. Do you guys remember that word, slide? so it's opposite on the negatives and stuff. It's really fun to look at. The composition is nice because it allows you to get the full match on that all the way out. And it is something I really like when we take our photography and move it into an alternative process. It's fun to do that, but it also gives us a chance to really push the limits of our industry. I'm going to give this one a 10.
The Apple and the Fly.
Yeah, this is great. The sharpness on it. Being able to really get that shot. I mean, I can't even kill a fly, let alone photograph a fly. You know, having the patience to do that, being able to get in there with the right lens and get it. The color is really interesting. It's slightly creepy and beautiful at the same time. When I think about what we do in studios and controlling things, there is that level of control going on. But I got in there and I was looking, and it's gross, but you can see all those hairs on its body. I mean, it's really nicely done. I would like to give this one a 10. Who would have thought a fly could have got a 10?
Iron Horse Elements.
Yeah, classic. So classic. Love the subject, love the age of it. It just has that nostalgic feel. The composition is beautiful, fills everything really lovely. The circles play off each other really nice. And there are a lot of them. The more you look at it, the more there are. Again, the sky is nice, dappled light back there in the clouds. So, you know, it helps hold interest and holds everything in. The overall contrast on this is beautiful. The blacks are good. The highlights are good. Again, retaining detail in your highlights. Your midtones look really nice. A lot of control in this one. And my eye keeps moving through it and wanting to continue to move through it. It's not like I look at it and want to move on. I'm like, yeah, okay, I saw it, you know, and you leave. Here you're like, oh, I need to keep looking. Is there more? What else is there for me to look at? Sort of that, you know, where's Waldo thing going on? And that's what I appreciate when images do that, and they keep you intrigued. I'm going to give this one a 10.
Monument Valley Totems.
Yeah, fun color, fun color. I do feel like in some ways the color really overtakes the image, which might be the intention, although I kind of wish in the foreground some of the highlights weren't as pink as the rest of it. I mean, that you can really see that kind of over the whole thing, not just up there, but it really does help frame the peaks really nicely, and the sand looks fabulous. I mean, being able to capture the ripples like that, you've got the shade, the light, and then you've got the softness of the dried up grasses, and the framing, the composition, also where your horizon line is. In that respect, I think it looks really good. But for me personally, it's just a little too much color that just sort of overtakes the whole image, not just like the sky area. I'm going to give it a 9.
Inhaled Too Much Weed.
I thought that was so funny. The title was funny. I love old cars. And so I really do enjoy the how old this car looks, actually. And again, though, I wish the dark was a little bit darker in here. Even if you look at the tire or inside the other part of the engine, it just looks like a dark gray. And so for me, I really wanted to see a little bit more contrast on it. But I really like the play of the old car with, you know, the moody sky, you know, the storm is coming in and the grass is dying. And so there's a nice theme going on. It's a very tightly cropped image. And so again, sometimes when we do that, we take on more of a portrait feel and we lose the sense of the environment that in some ways tells the story, gives us some of that emotion. So for me, it's a little too perfectly cropped. I'd like to see a little bit more. And also maybe that would help with the composition, not feel so locked in. I'm going to give it a 9.
And that is it. That's all our images tonight. So if we could rewind here and review this last batch of 9s and 10s. Selfie expression. This is Bill Dixon. He does have a comment here. Walking on the beach in Florida and saw this couple under the pier, like the tunnel effect of the pier. So there you go. And then nature versus man-made. This is Danny Lamb.
The pictures were taken in Canara Falls in May this year. It was a wonderful hike to get there. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. Thanks, Danny. Some memories are a curse. This is Cliff Lawson.
Yeah, another one of my veterans. It's really cool when they start telling me stories, and I try to get them to talk and kind of forget they're in a studio and forget about the camera. And he had just been relating an incident that happened to him. And he raised his hand to his chin like that, looked right at the camera, and that's when I took the picture. Just really a delightful guy. So thank you for your comments, Trish. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Cliff. Watching the sunset, David Besson.
Yeah, this was actually taken from a hotel balcony about 6 flights up on the Mediterranean coast in Tel Aviv. I was being very voyeuristic and taking pictures of people going home from work, and this woman just stopped and watched the sunset, which it was a very, very hazy, smoggy day, which is why the shadows are not as deep as I'd like them to be. I did work with them a bit, but I agree with you, Trish, that if the shadow could be a little bit blacker, it'd be better. Yeah, so much for voyeurism. But anyways, thanks for your comments.
So Lily Paz, Dominica Ducci.
Yep. Yes, this is another Botanic Garden one. I originally did this one in color, but then after finishing that, if I was looking at it, it was what it would look like in black and white. So I went back through and did that, and I ended up liking that one more. So thanks for the comments.
Thanks, Dominic. Now we go to the very lemony. This is Gwen Patton. She said, dabbled with still life in the spring with these found items from my kitchen. Thanks, Gwen. And this is Awning by Steve Wilton.
Thanks for your comments, Trish. Yeah, the reason this has such a literal title, not very creative, I think the original title was Festoon, is that I showed it to a photographer friend of mine, and the first thing he said, well, what is it? So I had to call it what it is, an awning.
But I think with abstract images, we can choose to let people not know and keep looking, or we can choose to say, okay, that's what my title is. And so, but I can get it with abstract art. Sometimes you have to help them.
Yeah, interesting.
Patchwork Past Flowers, Nancy Meyer. Yeah, so her comment is, I was playing around with Photoshop several years ago and came up with this, which I rather liked, but sometimes my artistic tastes don't align with others. So thanks, Nancy. Then the App on the Fly is Allie Green. She just says, the joys of macro photography. I really want to know how she captured this. It's an amazing image. And Iron Horse Elements is Joe Bonita.
Thanks for your comments, Trish. It's obviously a composite of sections of a steam engine out there in that Golden Railroad Park, that railroad museum. And I, took different pieces of different things and overlaid them. And the background is steam from a different train deal, different train image.
All right, thanks, Joe.
I just want to say, Joe, you did a great job, because I actually could not tell that was a composite.
Really?
No, and I was looking up close at it, but I was more interested in this, just how it looked, than trying to figure out what you did, because I think that takes away from the moment. So nice job, Joe.
Thanks.
Monument Valley Totems by Butch Mazuka. No comments here from Butch on this. And finally, Inhaled Too Much Weed. This is Terry Hinford.
Yeah, I want to thank Dan Greenberg for allowing me to accompany him to a salvage yard where I took this picture. I do agree. It looks much grayer than I thought it was when I developed it. And so I'll go back and look at that. It definitely isn't how I saw it when I finished it up, and it does need to be blacker. So thanks for the comments.
And that is all of our images tonight. So Trish, I want to thank you again for judging tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time and the careful study of the images and all the helpful comments and all. Really appreciate that. Enjoyed hearing your thoughts and perspectives, especially coming from more of an artistic kind of view too.
Yeah, I know that a lot of times some of you, because I know some of your other jurors are very technical based, but as an artist, it's all, you have to balance when you look at an image, what is captivating, what makes the story, what gives you the connection, where is that emotional aspect. And I feel like a lot of us are so technically trained that no pun intended, we focus on that and we forget what that art making piece is. And so when you look at something, yes, contrast and color and, you know, perspective and all those things are important, but really it's the subject and capturing it in a way that best tells the story of that particular subject matter, whether it's close or far away, and really playing with all of our options. So for me, yep, you're right. I do fine art a lot, even though I do commercial for a living. But for me, it's super important when I look at subject matter that's not meant to be commercial, that I can feel what it's meant to be. And that's why I kind of kept saying that predictability versus storytelling, like really balance that. Going past just cropping something tight and thinking, you know, what better is going to tell my story. So that's sort of how I think and teach.
Well, great. Well, thanks. Appreciate that. And, Dave, I don't know if you and Terry, if you want to say a few words about the program that'll be coming up in August. Just for a quick plug for that. Put you on the spot there.
You did put me on the spot. So, so we've got a wonderful program coming up in August. It's basically with Scott Wilson. Scott was a former member of Focus Camera Club, came down with colorectal cancer. And it's basically an update. He was a presenter 2 years ago. And it's kind of an update on kind of what he's been up to, some of his awards. He's always very inspirational. So I would encourage you, we're going to try to do this at obviously the Lone Tree Civic Center. Scott will probably be there. I mean, you know, he's involved in a lot of, kind of post-cancer. I guess he still has it, but I mean, so it's hard to know whether he will agree to participate in person or if he joins us with Zoom. But we will be having a hybrid meeting there in Lone Tree on I think it's the 10th of August. So,
okay.
But thanks, Cliff. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. No other comments from anyone, then I want to thank everyone for tonight, and thanks again, Trish, and everyone have a good evening. Right. Okay.
Thank you very much, Trish. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bob, for your projection work as well.